first time I heard my name come from the graves, it was just after 3 a.m. The rain had thinned to a mist, and the lamps along the main path flickered in uneven rhythm, throwing long, nervous shadows across the headstones. I was doing my usual round, and clipboard in hand, boots sinking in the mud, when the wind shifted. "Ryan." It wasn't loud. It was careful. The way someone whispers when they're right behind you, but don't want anyone else to hear. I turned, flashlight sweeping over rows of stones that looked almost alive in the wet night. No one there, just the faint creak of the iron gate and the smell of soil. Then again, closer this time. "Ryan." My breath caught. The voice sounded tired, familiar. I followed the sound past the maintenance shed, down the narrow path that led to the old section, the part even the daytime staff avoided. Graves from the 1800s, no names left on most of them, just eroded stone and sinking earth. That's where I saw it, a figure standing perfectly still beside a crumbling angel statue. Too tall to be human, too still to be alive. My flashlight flickered. For half a second it looked like someone in a security jacket, then the light died. I ran back toward the shed, slipped, hit the ground hard. When the lamp above the gate blinked back on, there were footprints in the mud leading toward me, bare, human, fresh, and written across the wet ground beside them. In mud, dark letters were 3 words I'll never forget. "You're on duty." They said the job would be quiet. Easy money. Just walk the grounds, check the locks, radio in if you see vandals. My supervisor, Carl, told me during the interview. He'd said it like we were talking about a parking lot, not 6 acres of graves on the edge of town. I needed the money, so I nodded, signed the forms, and 2 nights later, I was the new night guard at Briar Hollow Cemetery. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Cemeteries don't sleep, they hum. The wind sighs through cracked mausoleums, branches scrape marble, and rainwater gurgles in the drains like something breathing underground. You start to feel like the place has a pulse. On my first patrol, I carried a flashlight and a thermos of coffee. The beam hit hundreds of wet names: Evans, Moore, Delaney, Kay, some still shiny with flowers, others forgotten. The fog moved differently between the older graves, like it was avoiding something. By the 3rd night, my nerves started to fray. Small things didn't add up. My log sheet had check marks I didn't remember making. The maintenance shed door would be unlocked, though I always sealed it. The radio crackled with voices when no one was calling in. Carl said the previous guard quit for personal reasons. Later, the groundsman told me the man started hearing people whispering in the rain, calling him by name. I laughed it off. That night I found boot prints in the mud leading from the gate to the caretaker's shack. But they didn't lead out, just in a circle, like someone pacing for hours. Around midnight, a man appeared at the fence. Old, soaked to the bone. He didn't move until I shined the light on him. "You're not supposed to answer them," he said quietly. "That's how they find you." Before I could ask what he meant, he turned, walked into the fog, and vanished. The next morning, Carl asked what I'd seen. When I mentioned the old man, he went pale. "Ryan," he said slowly, "the last caretaker, Ezra Holbrook, died 10 years ago. That night I checked the registry. Ezra Holbrook, caretaker deceased 2014. Plot, row C, grave, 42. When I looked it up, the soil on his grave was fresh." The rain didn't stop for days after that. It clung to the cemetery like it had nowhere else to fall, soaking the ground until every step I took squelched with sound. I started carrying my phone in my vest pocket, recording audio every shift, not because I expected to catch ghosts, but because I wanted proof. Proof that the whispers, the footsteps, the voices that said my name weren't just me cracking under long nights and caffeine. The first recording was mostly static. Wind, rain, my own breathing. But around the 52-minute mark, a voice came through. Faint, distorted, but real. "Don't answer." When I played it back again, the voice was gone. Just empty air. By the end of week 2, the patterns began. Lights would flicker in a rhythm. 2 short, 1 long. Always near the old section. My flashlight batteries died faster in that part, even when new. The shed door creaked open by itself, though the padlock stayed unbroken. Carl laughed when I told him, "You're letting the dark get to you." But he didn't laugh the next night when he heard it over the radio. I was halfway through my patrol when the comm channel clicked alive with static. Ryan, check row C. Grade 42. Carl's voice. But when I answered, he didn't reply. The channel stayed open, just wet breathing and a low hum, like a generator turning underwater. When I got to row C, I found Holbrook's grave. The nameplate was gone. In its place was a dent in the soil, as if something had been pushing up from underneath. That's when I noticed the footprints. Small, barefoot, circling the grave. Then stopping right in front of me. The next morning, Carl didn't show up for work. His truck was still parked by the gate, driver's door open, headlights running. Inside was his key ring and a damp radio. The seat was soaked like someone had been sitting in it for hours under rain. Except the truck was dry. The police searched the grounds. They found nothing but deep grooves near the old crypt, as if something had been dragged inside. They asked if I'd seen anything. I said no. But that night I watched my shift camera footage before they came to take it. At 3:09 a.m., the gate camera caught movement, a figure walking toward the crypt. Carl. He turned once toward the lens, his face blank, his eyes reflecting light like glass. Then, just before the frame glitched, a second figure appeared behind him, tall, still, and when the static cleared, both were gone. After that, I stopped using the cameras, but I couldn't stop hearing. Every night around the same time, the whispers started. More than one now, weaving through the rain, too many to count. Sometimes they spoke words, sometimes just breathed, like they were waiting for me to say something first. A week later, I woke up at my desk in the shed, dawn light bleeding through the window, and saw muddy prints on the floor leading from the door to my chair. Small prints, the same ones from Holbrook's grave. On my desk, written in black marker I didn't own, were 4 words. The ground remembers everything. That night I stopped recording. I didn't want to know what the playback would reveal, but the cemetery wasn't done with me. The storm that night didn't sound like rain. It sounded like the ground itself was breathing. Lightning flashed across the cemetery, splitting the sky into stuttering images. The gate, the shed, the rows of graves glowing white, then swallowed back into blackness. I'd just finished checking the northern fence when the power cut out completely. The generator coughed once, then died. My radio crackled. Ryan, basement. Carl's voice, clear, calm. The problem was there was no basement, only the old crypt tunnels sealed decades ago after flooding. I stood in the dark, rain dripping off my hat, the silence so deep it pressed against my ears. Then came the knock, pause, knock. From the direction of the caretaker's shed, I aimed my flashlight, but the beam trembled. My hand was shaking. The padlock hung broken, swaying slightly. The door opened just enough to show black. Ryan, come see, the voice again. Not through the radio this time. From inside, the air in the shed was cold. Wrong cold, the kind that feels alive. The trapdoor I'd never noticed before sat open under the desk, iron ring lifted. Stale air rose from below, carrying the stink of wet stone and rust. I should have run, but the sound coming from the hole wasn't calling me this time. It was crying. A man's voice, choked and broken. Please help! I climbed down. The tunnel was narrow, walls slick with condensation. My flashlight barely reached the edges, but I could see the path twisting deeper under the cemetery. Every few steps I passed names carved into the brick. Dates, initials, small crosses. Some were fresh. The crying stopped. Then just ahead, my light caught movement. A figure slumped against the wall. Carl? He lifted his head. Mud streaked across his face. Eyes unfocused. Mouth twitching like he was trying to form words. They said they'd let me go if I brought another. My throat closed. Another what? He smiled, a cracked, trembling thing. You. Before I could move, the ground behind him began to shift. Not crumble, breathe. The wall pulsed, pushing out lumps that became faces, straining against the brick, eyes open wide. Mouths working in silence. The tunnel's air thickened, and a low hum filled my chest. A vibration that wasn't sound. More like the earth remembering something. Ryan. Dozens of voices whispered together. Stay. I ran. My light flickered and died halfway back, but I could feel them moving along the walls, rushing, following. When I reached the ladder, I saw the trapdoor start to close. A hand, pale, wrong, was pulling it down from above. I lunged, caught the edge, forced it open with everything I had. Rain hit my face as I scrambled out. The shed was empty. but the floor was covered in mud and footprints. Bare, wet, circling the desk like before. I staggered outside. The gate was open, but the road beyond had changed. No asphalt, no lights, no sign of the town. Just fields of gravestones fading into fog. Thousands of them, and in the nearest row a new headstone. Fresh, clean marble. Water running down the engraved letters, Ryan Holt, Night Guard, 2023-2024 behind me. The cemetery breathed again. The hum rose until it became a whisper that filled the air. The rain. Even my heart beat. You're on duty. The lamps flickered back to life, one by one, stretching into the mist. Each post illuminated another figure standing between the graves, soaked, motionless, faces pale as stone. All wearing the same uniform. When the last light reached the far hill, I saw the tallest one turn toward me. His name tag glinted in the rain. Carl. He raised his hand slowly and pointed at me. "Shift's over," he said, and then every light went out. They found me 3 days later, sitting beside the gate, soaked to the bone, staring into nothing. I was still wearing my uniform. The radio on my shoulder hissed with a dead channel, whispering static like it was trying to form words. The police said the cemetery was empty when they arrived. The shed door was open, mud everywhere, footprints circling the desk. But no one else was there. No Carl, no signs of another guard. When they asked what happened, I couldn't answer. My voice was gone. They said I kept repeating a single sentence under my breath. Count them. Make sure they're all here. The doctors blamed stress, sleep deprivation, exposure. The report said I hallucinated during the storm and wandered the grounds until morning. But they never explained the names that appeared on the new graves that week. 4 of them. All fresh marble, all dated the same night. One of the names was mine. They sealed the tunnels again, welded the shed shut, and replaced the fence. The city said the cemetery would reopen after restoration. It never did. Now it's just an empty hill off Highway 19. The gate rusted, the lamps dead. They say the wind up there sounds like breathing when it rains. Sometimes I drive past, just to make sure it's still there. I tell myself I won't stop. I never do. But last week, I swear I saw light through the fog. One lamp burning, pale and steady. And standing beneath it, a figure in a wet uniform, holding a radio to his mouth. When I slowed the car, the radio on my passenger seat clicked on by itself. "Ryan," a voice whispered. "You forgot to clock out. Now I leave it running, even when I'm not working. The static keeps me company. The nights feel quieter when it's on. But sometimes, just sometimes, the whisper comes through again. We're still counting. And every time it rains, I hear the gate creak open. I don't go back. I don't need to, because when I dream, I'm already there.